Hello and welcome to the Junkyard Love Podcast.
At what age do we learn how to have better conversations? At what age do we learn to have better conversations with ourselves?
Knowledge is power.
Reality is...
Professional like this.
And you got like your headset on?
I know, I feel like a pilot actually.
Maybe you are.
For some people.
That's true. Yeah, in multiple ways actually. Yeah, pilot is a multi-dimensional term really too, because there's like pilot in your oven too as well, right? To heat it up.
And the first episode of shows, is a pilot, right? Big flight.
Who's the driver?
Yeah. I love that. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see you. We'll crank into. So you've been on the podcast before, so people can definitely go check out those. And I also think it's like exciting to go see just you and me both, our growth. I'm sure that we've like expanded so much since even those episodes, like just within the last few years. So like we've been, throughout this journey, I feel like of self-exploration and trying to like serve people and whatever that means to us. And I feel like you and I always, every few months we intertwine and we have like these intense like synchronistic moments through Instagram messages and meeting up and stuff. So yeah, it's always beautiful. So I will definitely include like a bio of yours so people can kind of get filled in on who you are and what your background is and kind of what led you here. So assume that is below you. But otherwise, like how are you, Jay? What have you been up to? What's going on?
Thank you so much. Yeah, witnessing your growth is just, especially from where we come from. So those of you who don't know us, we've seen each other in it. I met Jake at a house party. I think I was like 15. And I remember this like it was yesterday. I can like go back to that memory. And we both actually connected because our parents were in recovery or still currently using. So we kind of had that like, we know what it's like to have parents of substance abuse, so I feel like even though I was drinking and quote lost, I feel like our connection has always been like solid, even before we knew what solid meant as connections. I feel like in the beginning when he said that growth is so true, because when you live where we live, a lot of people don't get out of it. They don't grow. I live where we live, and I witness people who never exit the cement, the dandelions that never sprout in that cement, and I feel like for us, we are those dandelions that you see in between those cracks, especially coming from Longview, Kelso area, where it's not really, the energy doesn't really support and nourish growth for thinking outside the box, right? They kind of want us to follow XYZ, work at the mill till you die. This is just the way it is. You were there. You were at the mill, weren't you? Like, you kind of were like, yeah. And I remember like, you've been making music, and I'm like, this is your full-time job, like go for it. Like I've always seen that in you, like the entrepreneurship, and like just the growth really comes from being an entrepreneurship, like leading that ship of service, which you kind of touched on. And how I'm doing is just being of service with every single connection I have. That's why the Celestian Prophecy, I recommended to you, because it's really crazy that that book is just getting into your awareness, because that book completely changed my life. It's a true story, but it's all about being of service and being open to being of service. And what I mean by that, service doesn't mean you have to be in the service industry, right? It's actually checking out at a gas station and looking them in the eyes and being like, how are you feeling today? That's service. Like it gives me goosebumps, because it's like, oh, yeah, like it's like that to me is being of service. Going on here and talking about being of service. Like I'm in the service industry, as a full-time Reiki practitioner, right? My job, how I get paid is to be of service, but I also choose to be of service with every interaction I have. Like I literally, and I believe that everyone that I come in contact with, they have a message for me.
Mm.
Truly. If you like, don't look at what they're look like, get out of like how people are like presented, and like I go like, what does this person have to actually offer me? And the book talks about that. Everyone that you meet, there's a message there.
Mm.
And when you, and it's keys. It's kind of like we're on like this map, like life, like, right? Like board life. And everyone you meet is like, if it doesn't matter what their role is, we each have, you know, when you're really in tune and you're really connected to the consciousness of oneness, which I am, I realize everyone I'm seeing is myself. So what does myself have to teach myself?
Mm.
You know, it's like
Mm.
this constant mirror, this constant like reflection. And I've noticed since I've really honored and accepted the oneness that I don't get triggered by people's actions anymore.
Yeah. There's a
I'm
lot.
like, oh,
Well, it's, I mean, I feel like when you show up and you're really here with someone, like, you know, someone who's, you're at a cash, you know, you go to a gas station, a convenience store, and that person is going through the motions and they're thinking about their own thing, and everyone's just like, yeah, hello, hey, how are you? And it's just no eye contact, and it's just the money exchange or whatever. Boom, boom, boom. They don't exchange energy. And then suddenly you get like someone like you or I in there, and we're like, how are you really? Hi. And they're just, you know, in a, so I, what's interesting, and I'm over halfway through of the Celestine process. I'm mispronouncing it. The book that you recommended, is it Celestine process or Celestian?
tomato, tomato.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, no, it is the synchronistic nature of everything involved in that book is just mind blowing. I've been so excited to talk to you about it just because you recommended it in a synchronistic way, because I had this like amazing conversation the night before with a coworker who mentioned it. And it's just been wild. But so something that I was talking with that same coworker that relates back to this situation of us going to the convenience store and kind of being able to pull someone out of their loops and their cycles of our who we think ourselves to be. When you show up in a situation from a place of service, you're not thinking about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing, you're blocking synchronicities when you're thinking about yourself. And that seems like, well, what do you mean by that? But I think that you'll notice if you walk around in life and you feel like you're not connecting with people, you're not having these synchronicities. Are you thinking about yourself? What's the loop playing? Are you feeling sorry for yourself? Are you trying to benefit yourself? Are you trying to, how do I get what I want so I can be this, so I can feel this? That thing that you're trying to feel in the end, if you keep asking yourself these questions, why am I thinking about myself? It's just here. It's just being with people that you're meeting. You're trying to arrive at a place where you're not neurotically just constantly thinking about yourself. So the act of service, I would love to expand on service, Jay, because I have come, I think I was mentioning about it the last like month or so, maybe a little bit longer. I've actually come back around to like rereading some like Christianity type stuff and listening to like I'm coming to an understanding. I used to have such a block about it.
Same.
And I love all this Eastern philosophy, and I'm like, that's the way. And recently I've like come full circle to understand what's being said in like Christian. And I feel like service is so big, but I think it's often misunderstood
Yes.
in a lot of these. So yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about service. What do you have to expand on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I never grew up religious. I've been to church like a few times. I had too many questions, honestly, that couldn't be answered, which I know that that's probably common. But I'm also not a follower. Let's just put that out there. And in anything I do, I feel like I'm always like trying to just be myself. And I felt that I feel like when it comes to the Christian, you know, this is going to be triggering for a lot of people who are quote unquote maybe brainwashed. We are taught that service is to get to somewhere better after this life. And sometimes with that Christian mindset, they're serving for the afterlife. They're thinking, well, where am I going? Because they have that, well, if I'm bad, I'm going to hell. If I'm good. And then they have that. So when you're coming of place to be of service from the idea that you're going to go somewhere better after this, you might not be in alignment. Do you know what I mean? I'm giving this person $10 because Jesus up there is keeping track of XYZ of my good deeds. Yeah.
Like it's Santa Claus on the naughty and nice list or something.
To me, that's not being of service. If you're donating and you're showing it and you're like, I donated, that's for yourself. That's not actually to me. So I sat with that because like, what are the intentions of service? And to me, I know when I sat with ayahuasca, one of my intentions with the medicine was, I get chills talking about it. I was like, I'm here to be of service. I've always known that. I went into nursing trying to be of service. Unfortunately, it wasn't in alignment. I don't agree with a lot of Western medicine. I didn't feel of service in that, right? So if I don't feel enough service, even though it's a service job, I don't feel like it's in service for me, then I'm doing a disservice. So that's another thing with service to me is it actually in alignment with how you are supposed to serve? Because we all serve in different ways. Some of us are messengers, right? Like some of us are literally here to speak, to spread messages. Some people are really here to wash dogs, and that's them being of service. They love animals so much. Like, so whatever it is, like I feel like we often get caught up in like, what am I here to do? What's my purpose? Oh, we get so caught. I've been there in that loop. Like, how am I supposed to serve? And it's like, ask, ask.
Mhm.
Literally, that's what I did. And I mean, Reiki to me is full of service because I'm just connecting people to whatever it is up there, out there, in there. And to me, being of service, like to sum it up, is really serving the consciousness to elevate the vibrational frequency of every single thing I come in contact with. If that's planting a seed in the garden, it's not always with physical people that I'm being of service with, right? It's feeding the birds at my house, right? It's emptying the pond and putting new water in for the frogs to grow in healthy water. It's cutting ivy off a tree to help that grow because that tree can't do it itself. To me, being of service is fully being lit up because I'm a light worker. To me, being of service is being authentic so I can help other people be authentic by just being me. Being of service is also staying true to myself. And the best thing that you can do if you're listening to this, you're like, I don't even know what to do, is focus on your own vibration at first. Be a little selfish if you need to, because you can't be of service if you don't have any light within. If
What
you're
is
dimmed, oh, sorry, go ahead.
what does that mean? Focus on your own vibration. What does that mean?
Okay, so focus on your own vibration. So I'm all about Reiki. Those of you who don't know what Reiki is an energy practice, ancient style Japanese technique for stress reduction, relaxation. Essentially, I'm channeling the universe through my body. That sounds insane. I know it's still freaking, I still don't get it. But I do it. People come up, people show up. I'm like, here I am. That to me is being of service. But vibrational frequency, everything is vibration. Everything is vibration. And not me, I don't look. I have the inner awareness that this computer screen, this microphone, the tea I'm drinking has a vibration in it. Right? I mean, I'm sure you've seen like the water things. When you have one water, it says I hate you, a note in it, and the other water says I love you. That water that says I hate you molds, doesn't grow. The other water grows just with a piece of paper with words on it. So vibration to me is, and keeping your vibration in alignment and high is, that's your personal responsibility. Until you can master that, or at least have some awareness of that, it's hard to serve other people because you're doing a disservice to your own frequency. Once you can tap into your own vibration, and what I mean by your own vibration is, what are your thoughts? If it's constantly negative, it's really hard to even hear how you can be of service. Like you're kind of mentioning how if you're looping around in that neurotic, like me, it's really hard to be of service. For me, I don't know how to describe it. It was just like, I just am of service. Like this something happens where you just shift into it. Like you said, like you don't even know it's happening sometimes. Like it really does just shift into it. And to me, about my vibration is just being pure hearted, really coming from the heart space. And whatever that looks like for you, if there's some wounds in there, if there's some hurt in there, it's going to be also hard to open up, because being of service means that whatever you connect with shoots through your body.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
inner voice, like, talk to that person. I don't want to. I'm embarrassed. I don't give, like, go talk to that person.
yeah.
That's being of
What is
service.
that? Why is there that thing saying go talk to that person? Like, why is there that little feeling? There's different times in our lives where we're a little more in tune, little less in tune. I think we can all resonate with some sort of like, yeah, I kind of feel like this sort of thing, and I feel like things are acting in my favor, and I feel like I'm meeting these people, whatever. And then maybe you go through some times where you don't have any of that, and you're like, what's going on? And life seems a little maybe gray or something. I think you could like look back and go, oh, I was thinking about myself, or maybe I was caught in my story again. Something really
Mm-hmm.
amazing that I love in this the Celestine prophecies, so whatever, is the there's this emphasis subtly, inadvertently, kind of like they paint it beautifully on healing our childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And but I really love the expansion of it. I love hearing every different view of this. Like I was just talking with some friends the other day, and I found myself trying to explain childhood trauma, and was going to like Gabor Mate and a couple of these intellectuals that like have written these books on trauma, but I found myself wanting to really expand the definition of, look, it doesn't mean that you were just like, when you were a defenseless child, an adult, physically harmed you, or an adult
Mm-hmm.
sexually assaulted you, or you were neglected, or your parents had to work all the time and you never saw them and you had to raise your sisters, or whatever it is. Essentially there is a pattern, a belief system, that you were taught to survive. Like you learn, this is how humans learn how to survive and adapt and belong in the world. Okay, so in order to get love, which is part of our being, we want to feel
Mm-hmm.
love. It's part of what moves us forward. It is what moves us forward. We find we're pattern seeking machines. So we see our parents, we're like, oh, okay, well, I did this, I said this, that didn't get me love. I did this, I said this, that got me love. Okay, you have this pattern and it will follow you through your whole life. And the huge thing is that I was trying to expand with my friends was kind of like, we all have childhood trauma. Let's say that everyone has something from their childhood, some structure that could use unwinding, that could use a second look, because it
Mm-hmm.
might be blocking you. It might be the reason why you're neurotically looping and you can't talk to these people at the convenience store.
Yeah.
So so I don't know. I think childhood trauma seems like this closed door to so many people, because they're like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
like, it seemed like my life was okay, like my parents loved me, I'm still friends with my parents, I'm talking to my parents, so like I don't really want to
Yeah.
go around saying I have childhood trauma. And I just want to invite those people, like, don't wall this off. These terms
Mm.
like childhood trauma,
Mm-hmm.
it's not, there's no gatekeeping here. It's essentially,
Right.
as humans, we're discovering, and we're using different words, and maybe some people have more severity than others or whatever, but the worst thing you've ever been through is the worst thing you've ever been through. So
Mm.
you can learn at whatever age. As an adult, you can look back and go, huh, maybe I'm not in alignment, or maybe there's things that are no longer serving me that I can unwind. So, and that's part of the process. Like, so I think things like, people like you and I seem to be helping people understand and teach these things within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what does that resonate with you, Jay?
Mm-hmm.
This thought of childhood trauma.
Yeah. And even deeper than that, you want to get into DNA
Go
and
go.
ancestral trauma. The
Mm,
wombs, when you're in your mom's womb, you got your grandma's eggs in you. That's science. You might not have trauma. Did your mom? Did your grandma have trauma? I mean, I think all of America and all of this world can say, yeah, it was pretty tough back then. That's in us. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, childhood trauma. If you're like, oh my, like how you were saying like, oh, my life was good. Getting yelled at in preschool is trauma. Like it doesn't always have to be from parents. It can be from outside stuff, like feeling left out, feeling neglected, right? All of those ways, like you're mentioning, like there's so many ways it comes up and it shows up. And as someone who again does energy work, I've never had anyone on my table that I haven't cleared or felt some sort of childhood trauma. I've done over hundreds of sessions. And it might not always be in this life. And those of you who maybe don't are new to that, like I believe I know I've lived thousands of, or not hundreds of thousands of lives. And the DNA is a staircase.
mm,
Everyone that's walked before us is walking in our DNA right now. I'm someone who focuses a lot on ancestral clearing, ancestral healing. I do sweat once a month. I call in a different ancestor and I clear that trauma. Okay, on to the next. We have 7 generations behind us, minimum, and 7 before us. So something else of being of service is I don't have children yet. If I don't know, I haven't decided yet. Um, I'm working for 7 generations before me.
mm,
I have a lot of people coming to me. I don't know if I'm a good mom. I'm like, are you being a better mom than how you were raised? yes, then you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a tip for the moms out there. Like, my trauma, I'm causing trauma. If you're doing better than your mom, you're doing it.
Be
Right?
easy on yourself. Be easy.
Yeah.
You're doing okay.
Yeah. But the trauma thing, yeah, it's the pattern. And I like how you mentioned like patterns and cycles, because one of my gifts is I have the ability to actually recognize when people are in a cycle and a pattern really easily. Like looping, like it's almost like I can see, especially the chakras are wheels, right? So I can see where the stories are circulating at, and I can actually pinpoint what chakra that story is sitting in. And I can actually pinpoint how that story activates this and activates that, and how when we're constantly talking about our trauma too, like personally, I used to do this, like talk therapy. Yeah. But sometimes, like, let's just get it out of the body. Like, I mean, for real. And you're like, how do I do that? Go lay in the forest, go scream, right? Go find energy work, go to meditation, go to DNA stuff, look at what you're eating. Like, a lot of times I find that people don't get better, one, because they don't look for the help, but two, because they don't even know that that trauma is sitting in there. Like looping around, like especially women in the womb. If you had a traumatic birth, like there's so many ways that trauma shows up, and it affects what I was going back to in the beginning is your vibration. That trauma is secondary to a feeling. So sometimes, like you said, we're pattern seekers. I really like that, because we are, but we're also, if you are sensitive and you're empathetic, empath meaning you can feel stuff. If you feel someone else has trauma in their body and you're an empath and you don't know how to protect yourself, you're transferring that into your body. And then you're like, oh my God, what's going on? I don't feel good. That person, like, we can go into like how to protect your energy, because I know personally, I used to just suck everyone's trauma out of their body for them and then go home and transmute it. Like, this started happening when I was a child. And I was depressed most of my life, but looking back, I'm like, I was just
not even yours. You're
exactly.
Like
I'm processing. Yes. I was like that girl at the party that's like having those like deep conversations with someone I just met, and I'm like listening, and like people are crying. Like, like, have you ever met someone and you're like, wow, I feel so comfortable, I want to tell you my whole life? I'm the person on the other side.
Yeah,
I've
same.
actually always had that. And when we're like that, and if you're like that and you're listening, it's because one, we've been through a lot, but two, because we can actually hold genuine space, and three, our energetic design is actually, it's a type of energy, it's called a transmuter. So every soul, every body has different energetic gifts. I believe everyone's psychic. I believe everyone has sensitivities. We all are different. Some are blocked, right? Gene expression, yada, yada. I can go deep into that. But some of us have the role of being a transmuter. So Jake and I are transmuters. And what I mean by that is we have this innate gift, whether we are aware of it or not, where people are actually talking to us trauma, because one, the soul has an inner awareness that our soul can fucking process it, right?
Yeah.
So as our job is to, one, listen, hold space, but three, not take it on. I think of it as like a filtration system for the, and that's another way I serve. I listen and I filter it, and then it's gone. It's it. Talk about it. Let's get it out. It's done. Get out of the DNA. When I sat with ayahuasca, I saw all my DNA like a freaking movie. And she's like, cut this out. Cut that out. Cut this out. Oh yeah, this happened when you were 3. It's still messing you up. Cut it out. Like the way DNA replicates, right? It's 4 letters. Our DNA is made up of 4 freaking letters. It's 3 blocks, codons. The way it replicates, a protein goes on top of a DNA, it rips it in half, and it just slides across. But if you cut the trauma out, DNA cellular healing, the trauma won't get recreated. It won't be in the DNA. So what I was seeing on an energetic level, and something else that I recommend, is DNA cellular healing, epigenetics. It's finally getting caught up that our DNA changes with our environment.
Yep. Yeah, epigenetics is like amazing, and I'm so excited for the future of epigenetics, and also just what is here now. I actually have had profound understandings in I feel I got into, like, a few years ago, I got into epigenetics. This guy, there's Joe Dispenza, Greg
Hmm.
Braden, and Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton is the
Yeah.
epigenetic guy. Yeah,
Yep.
I don't know if you've read any of his, Jay, but yeah, he really changed my perspective on epigenetic because I think we grow up thinking that there's things like hereditary or genetics, or you hear everybody say it. Like there, I was, man, I had this example. Like, I was working with these people. I was basically working with this older gentleman and his son who was like 20, 21, was working with us as well. And the way that I perceive people's interactions, I don't get into their business unless I'm invited in. So I didn't say
Hmm.
anything to these people, mind you. But the most clear, 100% clear as day display of like a trauma, the way that his dad was talking down to him, the way that he was
Mm.
condescending him, the way that the young child would interact. And then I would hear these conversations like he like jumped down off the stage and then said something about his knee and arthritis. And his dad goes, "Yep, you're going to have arthritis just like me." Like there was just this exchange
Oof.
between these two. And I'm from the outside going, "Oh no, stop saying all those things. Stop it." Like, hell, like
Yeah.
there was, I almost had to resist the temptation. I actually had to like, because I started to feel a little bit of I don't know if I was maybe taking on the energy or something. I started to feel like a little bit of anger, like this guy, like he needs to not talk to someone like that, let alone his son. Like he's harming his son and he doesn't know. You know, I kept my mouth shut. This wasn't a situation where I was invited to interject. But I think that we get so caught up with these stories of hereditary genetics, we forget about
Hmm.
genetic expression. We forget that
Yes.
a lot of who we are is learned by, like I was saying, ages 0 to 7. You're watching the people around you. Oh, I don't get love from this. Here's how I get this. I get approval from this. When I cry, I get this. When I don't cry, I get this. And we will
Hmm.
go about our life like that. And we call that hereditary often. We call that, we don't see it as something we have control over unwinding.
Hmm.
And I think that epigenetic expression, like what strands of your DNA are you activating? You know,
Yes.
and are you accepting that? Okay, well, my dad said this, and so that's truth.
You're
He has
turning it
this, so I have,
on.
yeah, yeah. Like what genes are you turning on? It is that an incredible thing to think that we have power over that. I mean, what a
Amazing.
terrifying thing at the same time. Like a lot of people might hear that and go, "Whoa, I don't want that." Like, wait, so what I think about and what I learn is my responsibility, and it's like, yeah, like
Yes.
in a sense, you can, you know.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That just brings me back to that story I told you about. It's just kind of deep. It's as woo woo as it gets. But
Oh, I love it.
when it's all about DNA though. So I love all that, and even the word unwinding. You know, and second before I forget, I maybe you were witnessing that experience because maybe that's how your dad treated you, and you were witnessing that, and you were healing that moment within yourself, and you didn't realize it. And that anger you felt is that inner child witnessing
Oh
that in
wow,
someone
Jay.
else.
Oh, that's something worth. Oh, I'm gonna sit with that. I like that.
Just
I
a
didn't even
thought
think
that
about
came
that.
through.
Yeah, see, maybe I was, yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Sorry,
anyway, go on. I'm gonna
before
think
I go
about that.
on. That's what I saw when I was seeing it. So when people tell me stories, I actually can go to that event and witness it from a higher point. I don't know if that makes
Meta
sense.
perspective, yeah.
Is that what it's called? Yeah, cool. So yeah,
Well,
meta
that's, yeah,
perspective.
that's what I call it. But
Yeah.
view from above.
So 7 years ago, like my awakening happened, Kundalini, yeah, 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 yeah. Um, I'm in Pal's book, and this book flies off the shelf. Like I'm not kidding. Like literally flies off the shelf. I'm like, okay, this is a book I'm gonna buy. And it's called We the Arcturians. I'm like, okay. It was like 500 pages. I'm like, I'm in. I go back home, nursing school at this time, so I'm in Tri Cities, and I'm in my bed, and I'm reading this book, but I don't even want to say I'm reading it. I'm like absorbing it. Like I've never read a book before like that. Like it was like 500 pages. I just
Mm.
and it's what the book is. It's a direct channeling from Arcturians. Arcturians are believed to be on the 5D but spaceship. They're in our sky. You can see them. It's one of the brightest star constellations. Arcturians. Or anyway, and the book is channeling from them, from a lady in New Mexico. And so it's all the art. So it's written from Arcturians. Think of it like that. Quote it, whether you resonate or not, those of you, but it's pretty much an Arcturian is writing this book.
Mm.
Everything that was in there was so true for me. They're explaining how Arcturus is. They're explaining how they are. They're explaining how they are with procreation. They're explaining like the vibration. They're talking about healing. They're talking about sound. They're talking about how they do school. Like so many things that they talk about, like that their species is about, is how I've always felt. Because when I'm on earth, like, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I look around and I'm like, I don't understand sometimes why I'm here. I know why I'm here, but sometimes I'm like, I know I'm not from here. So I really do resonate with being a starseed. We can dive into that too. But anyway, I'm reading this whole book. It's like 500 pages. I'm like, game. After I read it, it's probably like 3 a.m., right? When all the beautiful things happen in life. And I like go into a trance. I'm not like meditating. Like, it was just like, and I could tell I was like lucid or astral, like kind of I don't know how to describe it. I was aware that I wasn't sleeping or awake. It's kind of like when when you can't move your body, but it's not like sleep paralysis scary. It's just like you're in that like kind of like in between. And yeah. And this figure comes to me, blue, like Arcturians have blue skin. And he's just like in my awareness, like floating in front of me. But it's like more like a vibrating, like it's not like I see like an alien being like in my house with like a spaceship, even though lights were kind of going off. But it was just like this like figurette silhouette thing. And it was like kind of like vibrating like light. Because if you're from 5D, it's just light vibrations. It's not always like aliens are coming. It's like, no, it's a frequency. And he's like vibrating with me. And he shows me my DNA. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it's about DNA. He's showing me my DNA, which you guys know it's double helix spiral strand. So it's, they can't see me doing that, but it's spiraled, right? And the way DNA gets replicated is it actually rips apart, right? And then it copies what's there. So he was literally, I was seeing my DNA get ripped apart by this being, and he was replacing it with gold, golden light. And he would, to me, and after that, and then the next morning, I look on my mirror, which my mirror is facing my bed, which you should not have your mirrors facing your bed, by the way, it's a portal. But anyway, I didn't know that at the time. And on my mirror, and I can post this picture, the left-hand corner, which is crazy because the day before I cleaned my mirror and I lived alone at this time, there was like 3 like fingerprints, but they weren't mine. It was like, and then above it, there was like above it, but they weren't, and it was kind of like triangle shaped. So it was like kind of like human print. And then above, right above those was like triangle shaped fingerprints. I put my fingers next to it. Those things were way bigger. So I was like, to me, that means, yeah, we were here. What you saw wasn't like all woo woo in your meditative state. Like that was here.
Just in case you woke up today and wanted to forget about that. Like, no.
Dude, it kind of put me into a psychosis. And like my awakening wasn't gentle, you guys. Like my awakening was like, my kundalini oh my gosh, my kundalini like was self-inflicted. I didn't do it on purpose. It just and I like was in nursing school at this time. I was taking a lot of Adderall. Like I was like live by myself, like just nursing school textbooks, like super textbooky nursey, like and my awakening happened. And then I was like, I am in a simulation. Like my awakening was harsh. I'm like, I'm in a simulation. None of this is real. What am I doing here? Like I was never suicidal, but I was like, jump off a bridge. What's going to happen? Like I got to those intrusive thoughts of like, is this real? Like, am I real? I would look in the mirror. I'm like, who is this? After my Kundalini awakening, like I didn't recognize who was in the mirror, and it scared, I don't want to say it scared me, but it put me into kind of like a really alone headspace because I was still going in nursing school. I was showing up like, but no one knew what was going on. I was spending all my time alone. I was either in class studying or at my house, like meditating. Like I just started to be upset. I quit eating meat. I just started running. I just started doing a sauna. I was reading, and I just started to meditate constantly. Like it just started to organically happen. And I just felt like I was in a dream. Like it just started to happen. So after the DNA thing and all that stuff happening, I started to remember past lives being on these other planets. And I started to really tap into like, well, I'm not supposed to be a nurse. I kept doing it anyway because I was already in that program, yada, yada, yada. But I knew I wasn't going to be a nurse that long. I knew, and I know to this day, it sounds really insane to the outside looking in, but I'm here to speak to people, to awaken DNA, and to bring awareness of who you really are at the core. Everyone has stardust DNA. We're all cosmic. I mean, come on. Like we come into a freaking womb.
Yeah.
Like,
follow the umbilical cord and keep following it.
you know, like it's not that far-fetched to be incarnated on other planets. Like Earth isn't that old to me anyway. And so when I realized, I'm like, okay, like I have lived on other planets. Like that's real. Like I remember like when I was younger, I would just I slept outside. Like that was my safe space. My home wasn't safe. So I slept outside a lot and I would just stare at the stars and I'm like, I'm ready to go back. Like I remember being little, like saying that to the stars. Like, so those of you who ever are, if you are a starseed and you don't know that yet and you don't feel like you fit in, just find your tribe, find other people that you
Mm,
connect with, because that's how I felt at home. Was I started to actually meet other star seeds.
mm,
I started to meet other people who never felt like Earth was home and never wanted to be here, and it felt homesick.
mm,
How can you feel homesick from a place you don't even remember? It's that inner longing of home that we don't even know and remember that we have.
mm.
So
Well,
yeah, it's
well,
kind of a tangent, but
no, it's beautiful, and I actually want to talk more about your awakening experience. I actually just a couple of days ago recorded, like sat down, hit record, and said, I had a spiritual awakening 4 to 5 years ago. Here's what happened, and I'm going to try to tell you about it without using words like God and whatnot. And it was like it was difficult to watch. I think I want to try it again, and maybe it was just a rough draft. Yeah, the awakening experience. It's interesting. You talked about like, so I think there's this innate part of you that knows like, okay, I'm a healer. I want to help people. Like that seems like without even intellectualizing, that's just like you're almost working from. I have this feeling that is the capital T truth. I'm trying to catch my intellect up to it. Where do I look?
Mhm.
We look around and our society says, be a nurse, be a doctor. You can heal. That's the way you heal. When you
Yeah.
have I'm a healer, and our society has an answer intellectually of, well, we have the system set up for you. It's called being a nurse. And I think that yeah, like that's part of your awakening too, of going into it and going, Ram Dass, he was a psychologist at,
Yeah.
was it Stanford, Harvard, whatever.
Yep.
And he talks about so elegantly where he's at this place, he's at these, like he's got, I love Ram Dass. Like he's looking around, he's like, surely somebody has it all figured out. Like, you keep doing these courses, you do these psychology degrees. He's meeting with these other psychologists. He says, he's like, I have a nice BMW. I have a nice house. He's like, I have my pilot's license. He's like, I'm supposed to know it all. And somehow he's basically describes, he's looking around and like somehow still nobody knows. Like they don't know it. Like we're all just playing this game of being a psychologist. And Ram Dass started to become aware of that, And then I think that's, his path soon led into, he met up with Timothy Leary and they tried
Yeah.
psychedelics, and he lost not only his body in that in that experience of taking mushrooms, but he also lost his identity. He
Yeah.
lost being a psychologist,
Yes.
being a professor. And he had to, well, what is there left? And he had to sit in that, and that's like kind of been his path to God. But yeah, so I think that everything that happens to us is it's so intertwined, it's so interconnected, and sometimes it doesn't feel like it when you're going through it, and sometimes it's like even now, if someone's sitting here trying to think of their traumas, going, oh, that was supposed to happen to me, yeah, are you sure? It's like, I'm sorry, yeah.
You
I'm sorry.
chose it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
see, and
You
that's
actually chose that.
that's dude. Oh, and I have loved coming to an understanding of that as well. Karma and reincarnation took me a long time to wrap my head around. It took me a long time to get my head out of the way. Because there is this. Okay, so listener, contemplate this. Even just like, not even me trying to tell you this is how it is, but just contemplate a what if. What if before you came here, you had a conversation with everyone in your life, with your parents, with everything. You said, hey, look, I want spiritual development just like you. This is our purpose. What's going to give me that? And you shake hands with your parents as souls, and they say, all right, I'm going to do that, and you're going to do that. And you say, all right, fist bump, boom, you're shot into, you're born, you come out and there's light, and you're at the hospital. And you've just gone through the veil of forgetting, as some call it, and you don't remember any of that handshake, but now your task is spiritual development. Your reincarnation here is to have trauma and quarrels and things happen with your parents, with your family, with the people that you interact with your life, with your society, with your city, with your state, with your world. and your job is to somehow stay above water to navigate and like try and be clear-eyed and understand it, so you can now help other people who have the same
Yeah.
handshake afterwards. I guess that was a bit of a tangent. I'm not sure where I was circling with
No,
that
but I
either, Jay,
love
but
that.
yeah.
Yeah, and I actually have a reincarnation story, personal one. That's
Okay.
trippy as yeah,
Yeah.
all of that. So those of you, again, reincarnation, if that's new for you, like this is about to just so I was like 3 years old, and I'm going up to my grandma, my dad's mom. Her and I had like a really good connection, like from birth. When I was born, she saw angels around me. Like we just have a really tight knit connection. And I'm 3 years old. I'm at her house. I'm like bopping around, and I like go up to her and I like tap her stomach. And she's like, "What?" And I said, "Remember when I was in your belly?" And she's like, "No, you were in your mom's belly." And I'm like, "Yeah, before that." And I'm 3, okay? I'm like, "Before that." And she's like, "No, honey, you've only been in your mom's belly, like your mom." And I'm like, "Forget it." La 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 la. Well, my grandma had a baby die of SIDS, and her name was Jamie. And that baby died at 4 months old, June 6th, named Jayme. Why do people call me Jay? My name's Jordenelle. So, yeah.
Interesting, the connected nature. Like, so it could literally be an agreement that you had, like, it's
And I chose my mom. So my mom and dad, like, they had sex like not that much. And I actually remember going in to my mom's womb.
Wow.
Like I actually had that awareness of going within. And I actually remember I've done so much like healing within the womb, because like something else about trauma is the waters you were birthed in, like the waters of the womb, what words were around you when you were in your mom's womb. So for me personally, no one knew I was in there for 7 months. I was growing and hiding.
Dang,
So
7 months, and she didn't know she was pregnant?
No, my mom was 16 and she just avoided it.
Wow.
And the first thing when she did tell someone, the first thing was go get an abortion. So the first thing upon finding out I'm in there is
hear
go.
that.
And yeah, my mom goes into the clinic and they tell her, you have a week to decide. And I remember that I've gone back in meditation and I actually remember being in her womb in the clinic with her. And she said she's in the clinic and she said that she just felt this like, no, I can't do that. Again, if you've had an abortion, like there's no judgment. This is just like an experience that my mom went through.
Yeah.
And my mom birthed naturally. I was due the date that they said. She was about to go to work that day. Like my mom worked until she's at birth. So that's another thing, like how our mothers held us during pregnancy also affects us. It's not just childhood. It's like even your birth story affects you, right? Like did you get a breastfeed with your mom? Right? How was your mom's mental health when you were breastfeeding? How was your mom? Did she have postpartum? I invite you to ask your moms, like, how was your birth? Did you connect with me right away? My mom didn't connect with me right away. My mom actually, she wouldn't be able to say this, but my mom hated herself. So she hated me. My dad left her the day I was born. So I was kind of like that baby in the crib that just like got pushed. So again, my mom and I have done so much healing together. Like I said, we did ayahuasca together to actually heal generational curses.
Which is so beautiful. Like that's so amazing.
So it goes deep. But when you're talking about trauma and you're talking about like stuff like that, ask your parents like how the birth was. Did you want to get conceived, right? Or were you whoops? All that intention. That's why we talk about conscious conception. Like, so when I do have a child, I plan to be very conscious about who I'm bringing in. The soul that wants to come through. Who is it? You're going to be birthed in love. Whatever soul decides to come into my womb, I've been prepping for. But I've also, like, when you're being intimate with your partner and you're trying to have a child, calling in a soul is going through me. That trips me out.
Dude.
That's why I haven't had a kid yet. I'm like, like, what?
Yeah. What greater responsibility to take on though,
That's why I haven't, because I'm like, I'm not there yet.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be so sure about that. I mean, I don't know. I think you'd be in a great position. But I would like to. So I have actually heard this. This loops right back around. I have actually heard. I can't recall who somebody on a podcast talks about. They had an ayahuasca trip, and in their purging was so intense, and the big thing that they came out with was they they had a difficult birth. Like when they were birthed into this world through their mother, it was either umbilical cord wrapped around the neck, these they couldn't breathe right away, and that alone had like traumatized them throughout their life, and they had this
Probably had
ayahuasca
asthma
trip.
and everything.
Yeah, they had all these issues that and they never knew. They had no idea. Like it wasn't even like a known thing in their family. Like, oh yeah, you had a difficult birth, or like, you had the umbilical cord wrapped around your neck. I think it was like something he had to rediscover. But he basically had all these like mental quarrels that were harming him in his life, affecting him from being the highest version of himself. He takes ayahuasca, and Mother Ayahuasca is like, you were traumatized from your birth canal. And here's how you deal with it, whatever, and he was able to expand it and like come through on the other side and speak about it. So there's just these things that are underlying the surface that we may have we want to put our intellect around them and try to, here's what happened, but there's things you have to really be open to hear them. So I would love to, Jay. When you had told me this a while back ago, you had an experience with Mother Ayahuasca. You traveled across the world and you did ayahuasca with your mother. So I would love to treat this, if someone's tuning in right now,
yes,
if they've maybe kind of heard ayahuasca, they're like, oh, it's like a psychedelic, like some sort of like you trip out or something. Can we start from like someone who really doesn't know anything about this and invite them in, and then share whatever you're willing to share? I'm so excited to hear about this.
Yeah. So, okay, ayahuasca, so I went to the Amazon, which when I was about 11, 12, I'm like, I'm going to the Amazon to do ayahuasca. So I've always had this innate connection with ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is considered to be grandma of the planet, grandma spirit. It's actually a vine. And the way they found the vine is they heard it talk to them. They actually found it through mapacho, which is grandfather, which is tobacco. So ayahuasca and tobacco are married in union. So you actually like smoke a lot of tobacco when you're sitting with Aya, because they're together. So think about everything as having a spirit, right? Plants have spirits. Think of it that way. And this vine, like divine, we're connecting to divine, the tree of life. It makes sense that this medicine is a vine and it's underground. And the vine talked to these people and said, hey, I'm here to heal the world, essentially. This is what you do. Because you can't just eat the vine. Like, it's not like a mushroom where you actually pull it up and you brew it for like 48 hours. Like, it's a process. Like, they really had to be connected, and she gave instructions for how to do it. It's not like pick the vine, eat the vine, you're high.
Yeah, there's basically these two different things that are at different sides of the jungle, and they basically were given guidance to like, hey, you have to combine these things together because our stomach, our microbiome does not process the DMT without this other part of it itself. And so like, even if we just take the ayahuasca or the one part of it that we think has the psychoactive effects, it does not affect our system without this other piece. So yeah.
Super ceremonial.
Yeah.
Like, so I did it in a tribe with the Shipibo tribe, who have been in the Amazon since the beginning. They speak Shipibo. So that's another thing. If you are interested in ayahuasca, I highly suggest going to the Amazon, because you can do it in the States, but you really want to be protected. Like, you want to be with shamans. Let me just leave it at that. So anyway, ayahuasca is essentially, you're actually, you're hallucinating, but they actually say that that's a distraction. So if you find yourself like frying and you're like going on all these vision quests, that's actually a distraction. You're not actually supposed to follow that. You're actually supposed to live. So in the middle of the trip, I guess I'll start from the beginning. So you have to go on a dieta. So 30 to 60 days before you can even sit with Aya, no marijuana, no tobacco, no caffeine, no meat, no sugar, no salt, no spices. Like, you got to be intentional with your vessel. You don't have to, but people that didn't follow the dieta, I could tell, because they were not having a very good experience. Because our vessels are the temple that the medicine sits in, right? So they're going to go in there and kind of clear it all out. So you are in a maloka, And a maloka is just like a term for the building that we're in. And there's shamans in the middle. So there's like 4 shamans. Particularly, this tribe was a mother, a father, a son, and the daughter's husband. And the son, he started taking ayahuasca at 7. So these people have been doing it. It's not like, again, random. And the Shipibo tribe, their whole life is to serve ayahuasca. That's why they're here. They know that at birth. When you're talking about being of service, like that's their role on this planet, and they're facilitating deep healing. So with ayahuasca, you kind of set your intentions. You know, there's maestra, and I went to a place called Arcana, which you can look up. Christina, Justina, like they're amazing healers. She sucks bugs out of people. It's insane. Yeah, there's a video on it. And it's dark. You fast that whole day. So before, actually, where I was at before I did ayahuasca, I did combo, and combo is a frog medicine. So combo is going to clean your blood. So it's kind of, they take like an incense type stick and they burn your skin off. And then they put this frog medicine, which is the venom of a frog, but they do it in a way that's not harming the frog. And then they actually put that frog venom in the burn hole. And what this is, you throw up. Your blood gets hot.
Is it psychoactive? Do you have a trip? Is
No.
it DMT? No
psycho. I did do that too, but this is just more to cleanse your blood before we even receiving Aya. So it's a whole prep. It's not like I'm gonna take a bag of mushrooms today and fry. Like it's definitely something to prep for. But it also brings it up, like, who are you without all your addictions? Who are you without food? Who are you without caffeine? Who are you without weed? I used to be a stoner. I'm not anymore. I actually don't smoke. But so then you do combo, you throw up, and again, you're throwing up around everyone. Like there's no chill here. Like you have coolers in front of you and you're projectile vomiting in a room with like 13 other people in the middle of the Amazon. Like it's an experience. And when you sit with Aya, they smudge you, like the shaman comes in and blows on you, protects you. Again, it's so much about protection, because when you're tapping into these realms, it's deep. It's not like a mushroom trip. It's not like an acid trip. Like there's moments of it if you have taken those, but it's because it's not supposed to be like a fried trip. Ayahuasca heals the mind. That's the point. She shows you where you're looping around in cycles, which we were talking about in the beginning. So my first night, so you go on, you take a little cup, and you only take like a shot glass. Like you don't even need a lot, and it is bitter. Woof! I loved it, honestly. It's earthy, it's bitter. And they actually ask you to sit up the whole time if you can. Because I guess when you're laying down, you're more susceptible to other things coming in. So if you can keep your channel sitting upright. And you guys, so during this, there's 4 shamans in the middle, and they're screaming the whole time. What I mean by screaming is they're singing because they're protecting you. So they have songs for the plants. So the words that they're saying is in Shipibo, but they're speaking for it's songs of the plants. It's ayahuasca songs.
Are they harmonizing at all, or if you were to see from, like, if you were watching from the outside of the circle, would it sound a little chaotic, or would it sound like the 4 of them are working together? Because I feel like I've heard before that it almost sounds like they're like battling in some senses.
Well, they're clearing out demons, so they each kind of have different roles.
Okay.
So like, let's say someone's having a really bad trip, which happens, then it does sound chaotic because they're clearing them out, because you're supposed to listen to the voice. So kind of follow one, like I connected with all of them, but it's all in harmony.
Okay.
If you're in it, because if you can tune in, and you're supposed to listen to them sing. A lot of people don't, because they're in their own head and they're scared and they're not surrendering, but I can surrender pretty easily. When you listen to the voices, it's guiding you. It's kind of like Alice in Wonderland. Like the plants are guiding you. So you're listening to them and they're singing, and it's ayahuasca talking to you through them, because they take it too. They take way more than us. They take like way more than us. So they are ayahuasca, and they're singing and every night was different. So I sat with it 4 nights. The rhythm and the way it worked was different every night. Like the vibe and the intensity and the electricity, it was different every night, because like the last night, I was like one of the only people who sat with it. Everyone was done. Like they were like, I'm like, I'm ready. Because my first few nights, people around me were suffering. And it was actually, I told the shamans, I'm like, it's hard for me to surrender when people next to me are suffering and I feel like I can help. So that was a big lesson for me, was like, wow, like even though I'm sitting with ayahuasca, I still have this awareness of how I can help people around me. Like I don't let myself surrender to my own healing. Like I'm always focused about other people. So that was a big lesson for me. But essentially, you are seeing visions. Like everyone experiences different. Honestly, though, someone next to me, he was like super, I don't know the correct words to say it, but not a psychopath, but psychopath energy. You know how they kind of aren't as connected, like that theory, they don't have souls. I'm not saying he was, but he didn't see anything. He didn't even feel the medicine. He was angry every night because I'd have these profound, he sat next to me. Eventually he had to move because I vibrated him out, because he was mad that I was having these profound visions and these experiences. And ayahuasca, and I just like, it was like when I drank ayahuasca, I just felt like, oh my gosh, like I've missed her so much. Like she feels like my grandma. But if you don't have that interconnection, not saying that this was like a rare thing, but just everyone's experience was really different. And that's something I want to say too. Even though we all took the same medicine, everyone had different intentions. So you tell the shamans your intentions when you get there. So when you're drinking your cup, you're thinking about it's so intentional. It's so, so, so intentional. And honestly, like for my experience, the first night, I got lost in the visions because I was seeing like the whole world. Like I was seeing just the suffering. I was seeing the child trafficking. I was seeing just the suffering on the planet. I was like going deep in that. I was seeing like the Monopoly game board. I was seeing the players. I was seeing the Matrix. I was seeing the makers of the Matrix. Like it was so profound. And I was like, oh my, because one of my goals was to become unplugged fully, energetically from the Matrix. Those of you that know the Matrix, that's a true story. So the first night I was seeing everything. I was seeing the corruption. I was seeing just the slavery, the modern day slave. Like it was really like this awareness of like, ooh, like I was just seeing it. And then I started to get in my loops of all the thought patterns that I usually have. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's time to exit. So it was like the inner awareness of like exiting, right? My second night was really interesting because so I've had an abortion and then I had a miscarriage, and they were exactly a year apart, May 6th. And my abortion story is just crazy because again, aliens came through and took the baby. But there's so much with my life that I'm like, it does not sound real, but I'm a living testimony that this shit is real. But when I was sitting with ayahuasca, I was like, I saw the first baby in my womb, but I saw myself go to full term. But I never thought about the baby. Like when I had an abortion, like it just wasn't in alignment for me. And I never felt guilty about it. Maybe because I didn't process it, obviously. So I'm sitting with ayahuasca and I'm seeing myself go full term. Like I'm seeing if I didn't have the abortion. So I'm literally watching my stomach grow full term to 9 months. And I birth a baby. I like pull a baby out. And I'm looking at it and it like has like a little Hawaiian tint. My partner's Hawaiian and it's a boy. And I shit you not, there's a baby in the room. It's one of the shaman's babies. Okay. As soon as I pulled this baby out of my womb astrally, the baby in the room started to cry for the first time that night.
Weird.
Like, and another thing that's really crazy is that baby would be the same age as this baby. Okay, sidetrack. When I was pregnant, the first time, I told Dane, I said, this baby needs to go to the Amazon. I get chills talking about it. I'm like, and when I got pregnant, I was on shrooms.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, no, this is trippy.
Yeah,
as
like maybe
fuck.
you were like wrong door,
Yes.
like keep going, like keep going down the hallway, baby, like wow.
It was because I got
interesting.
pregnant on shrooms. Like it was like, and as soon as I got pregnant, as soon as it happened, I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. He was like, you don't know that. I'm like, I am pregnant. I felt it right away.
I do think women know that. I think that, yeah, often, yeah.
I mean, I'm really in tune with my body. Anyway, so when I was pregnant, I said, Dane, I was like, I don't know what it is, but I have to go to, I'm like, if we keep this baby, it has to be born in the Amazon. Like, it was just this like crazy thought pattern. Like I said, I am not the right mom for this baby. Like I'm not, Like I had this like deep thing in me. I was like, I'm not the mom for this baby. This baby needs to be in the Amazon. So when I saw that baby in the Amazon and it just had this like smile, I mean, I don't know, I have a good, babies love me. But when I had that awareness of birthing this baby astrally on ayahuasca, and when I pull it out of my womb, the baby in the room started to cry at the same time. The baby hasn't cried all night. People are screaming. You don't even know the baby's in the room. As soon as I birthed the baby, as if a newborn came out, the baby in the room started to cry. And I'm like, what in the actual, to me, like, at that point, I'm like, what is this life?
Yeah.
So then I'm like, it's time to purge. So I go in the bathroom and I'm purging, and it's kind of graphic, sorry. But I'm purging up like baby parts, almost as if when I had the abortion and the miscarriage, not all energetically, the baby didn't come out.
Wow.
So I was like, when I was not literally baby parts, but what I was seeing in the toilet was.
Sure.
And then I looked around like on the bathroom, and like when you're walking, it was trippy, right? And I'm like looking on the bathroom wall, and there's a fat frog, which means cleansing, and then this huge moth, which means, death and rebirth. And I'm like, okay, like that was meant to be. That was like really big experience for me, because I was like, that confirmed to me that I did the right thing with the abortion. I don't have to question that choice. And secondly,
but this
go
wasn't
ahead.
even, I'm sorry to interrupt. This wasn't even something that you went like, I'm going to the Amazon to deal with
No.
this guilt of abortion. It wasn't intentional, right? Like this is just something
I had
that,
no
I
idea.
guess I have to remove this block or this, or understand this situation.
Yeah, I had no intention to. I thought I dealt with that. I do so much Reiki and I do so much womb clearing and womb healing. I didn't even know that was sitting in my womb still. I had no idea. So that's another thing, women, if you've had a miscarriage or an abortion, and if you haven't looked at the energy, it may still be sitting there, and guilt and shame may be cycling around in your womb, preventing you from getting pregnant again, or blocking your abundance, or blocking your creativity, or blocking your pleasure and feeling safe to be pleasured.
Do you have, I don't want to derail too much. I want to still talk about the story, but if someone is in that position and they're not in a position right at the second to like travel to the Amazon and go to do ayahuasca, is there something you can maybe recommend that, how do we, women who might be like, maybe I should bring that back up and sit with that. Is there anything that you recommend?
Yeah, I would first literally ask your body, sit with your body, like, well, like, is there clearing that still could take place within my womb, and feel how your body feels and feel what emotions come up. And if there is, just YouTube sacral chakra healing and put a healing frequency on. Super simple, background noise, but it's going to be the sacral chakra. So anything sacral chakra healing. You don't have to go to the Amazon to clear this. I'm just
Okay.
Extra.
Beautiful. No, I love that though. I think that's so great though, because I would love it if someone is resonating with that. I think there's not a lot of guidance or conversations about that within our culture. So I think, totally. Sacral chakra healing. I'm with that. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Carry on your ayahuasca
So sorry,
journey.
that's so much. But another really amazing part about, there's so much, right? Like I'm going to write a book because I just saw so much. But what's crazy, again, remember my mom's across the room. My mom's never taken any psychedelics. My mom went there because she had cancer and it wasn't genetic. So she's like, what caused this? So it's really cool to be in the same room as my womb, the womb space that I'm healing from. It was just really cool. But another part of my journey that was really prolific is, I guess I'll skip to the last part just because I know we're short on time. The last night of ayahuasca, again, I took the most of anyone in the room. No one else tripped. I'm like, finally, I can let go because no one else is crying. I can do this. And I'm sitting there, and I see these 3 agents in my aura, like literal, like Matrix type agent, like Mr. Smiths, right? There's like 3 of them in my aura. This is graphic again. Okay. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want these in here. Because remember, one of my intentions was to unplug from the Matrix fully so I can help other people unplug. So I saw your taxes, your money, like student debt. Like I was seeing all these attachments, and like, you're a nurse, your license, like all these like things that had me still connected, that were deep in my subconscious. I literally took a samurai sword out and I sliced their heads off. I'm not even kidding. Like I was like, Oh,
Sick.
yes. Like, yes, get out of my aura and like in my subconscious and like
Yes.
programming me.
Badass.
I don't want to. Yeah. And I was like dancing in the blood, like Kali Moth style. Like, I don't know if you know her, but she's like a deity I connect with, and just felt so liberated. Like, oh my gosh, like, oh, I just felt free. I felt like,
Mm.
okay, to just be a soul without all attachments of the matrixly world, and to just be free in that current moment, and to remember that for when I do feel overwhelmed by money and all those things. And after all that happened, so many other things happened, but I'm sitting there, and precursor, one of my biggest fears since I was a child is getting eaten by an anaconda. Like, just precursor to this. Yeah, I don't know why. So anaconda is the spirit of ayahuasca. So you guys know, she shows up as anacondas. An anaconda opens its mouth. This is how my trip ends. Last night, an anaconda opens its mouth. It goes on the top of my head and it swallows me whole. Literally. And in that moment, the trip was done. And to me, that means ayahuasca accepted me into her forever. And she's always with me. And I'm a walking vibration and
Wait, so
spreading the
that
message.
that was like a sobering, like that was like, all
I,
right, that's the end of your trip.
yes, that was the end. And I
Oh
knew that
my,
was the end. That's how it finished. An anaconda swallowed me whole. And yep, that was it.
I wish we could talk about death for another 3
I
hours. I
love
think I
death.
think I really want I would love to talk about. I think maybe we'll do another podcast where we
Yes.
just talk about death. I think it's actually something our culture really needs to talk about. Um, oh my gosh. Okay, so
That was so much.
no. Oh wow. Okay. So incredible. Okay. So what your mother's journey is her personal journey. So
I
of
can
course.
share a little bit about her. She's open to it.
Yeah, and was there what was your journey together? Did you guys have any sort of you see each other from across the room in this just absolutely divine space of consciousness? Was there mother child healing? Was there anything between you and your mother in that situation?
So honestly, I'm the role of the mother in this
Mm,
relationship. I've always been someone she comes to advice for. But my mom had a night where it was super scary for her, super dark. She had some bad trips, and I was talking to her about it, and she was like, I don't get it. Like, why was this dark? And I said, most of your life has been dark. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you used meth for 10 years. You're physically abused. We've been homeless. You didn't like
come on.
you were checked out of your life for like 10 years, getting like just house to house to house getting high. You don't remember my childhood. You don't remember your childhood. The reason it's dark is because that's literally you've had so much trauma that you've literally blocked it out. I'll tell her, this is something that's been hard for me, not now, but I would tell her memories of my trauma and my life. She goes, I don't remember. And I'm like, so is this in my head?
Yeah. Did I make it up?
No one else remembers this trauma. Okay, cool. So it kind of is frustrating because she doesn't remember. So, but I would say the most profound moment that I had was actually taking Bufo. Bufo is a frog, 5-DMT. I loved it. You die. It puts the chemicals in your brain that you experience when you die.
Mm-hmm.
It's toad medicine. It's like it's a different toad than combo. And you smoke it like in a little bubbler. And this is like, it's not as like, it doesn't last as long. And 4 people kind of go at once. And the main thing is to surrender. And again, I'm really good at surrendering. Like, I don't know. I've mastered that skill. I shouldn't say mastered. I've really good at it.
You have experience from past lifetimes.
Yeah. And so my mom and I actually went at the same time, like a little different. Dude, but my mom was screaming. And when she was screaming, it sounded like my grandma that passed. It tripped me out. And I took mine, and I was like light language, like I was like attuning myself to like these like galactic codes, and these galactic beings were like I love death. Like, I'm so comfortable in that realm. So that's where it takes you. It takes you to your body. But if you aren't comfortable with surrendering and letting those ego die, I've gone through a lot of ego deaths, you're going to fight it. My mom was fighting it, like screaming, pounding, like literally like wrestling herself. She would not surrender. She couldn't let go. And that's why she got cancer. because she has all this in her that she doesn't even know it's there. And it's just like, let me out, see me. So if anything, me being able to surrender and me bringing to her the awareness of validating her trauma that she doesn't even remember
Mm.
was really key for us. Cause I'm like, Mom, like if you don't remember your childhood, it's bad.
Yeah.
If you don't remember your adulthood, it's bad.
Yeah. Like, where were you for it? Where, you were checked out. What were you doing? Were you protecting yourself from even seeing the truth of what was going on the entire time?
Yeah. So
Wow.
that was like something that I was really, really cool for us to, I don't say cool, but was beautiful for her to experience was, wow, maybe Jordan knows what she's talking about with energy work.
Wow.
Maybe because when I quit nursing, it was a really big deal for my family. Actually, a lot of people like stopped liking me because of that. It was like interesting. When I stepped into the role of an energy worker, it's really interesting, like the transitions of ego. For my ego death, actually, like I was dead to people when I
Dude.
quit. It was so interesting. Like I'm not here anymore now that I'm not in that role.
It actually reminds me, just to talk about myself again, loop after loop, but it reminds me of when I started this podcast after my spiritual awakening. I did not know that I had a spiritual awakening. I didn't understand what was happening to me. I was just in this state trying to like find ground. And, looking back, like I said, like the first 100 episodes of my podcast, I could say are like, this is like the beginning of my journey as I was understanding it, so like hopefully give me a little grace. But I remember the beginning, just my numbers, like I'd never cared about the numbers, but it is interesting to watch. At the beginning, everyone was listening to my podcast. And then over the course of a couple months, less and less, because they started, I think when they opened my podcast, they're trying to hear Jake, the DJ, the cool guy, the cool, charismatic, fun, popular guy. And they hear it and they're like, what? Who
is this?
And they don't connect with that because the person who they thought they were connecting with had died.
Yeah.
I mean, he is completely gone. And I don't know if I didn't really, I mean, it's taken me up until more recently to even fully understand. And like, I've talked to you about Kundalini awakening, and that I had the same thing. I had a Kundalini awakening that I didn't ask for. I didn't know it existed. I didn't know it was a thing. I accidentally caused it to happen, but also it was exactly what was supposed to happen.
Right.
But it is interesting. Like you kind of disconnect with these people who are connected with a version of you that no longer exists.
Yeah.
And it's triggering for them, but it's also they suddenly like they lose interest, and you're like, all right, see you later. But it's been this beautiful like guidance, because the numbers will begin to arise again for people who need to hear it, not people who want to reaffirm that Jake is still a cool guy and he's a cool DJ guy and he's popular, but more for people who are need to hear what I'm here to be of service of.
Yeah.
So the part of you that has to die off. That's so okay. So what has been your I think we're like pretty close up here on time, but what has been your integration? So how long ago was this, and what, because with a psychedelic trip, I think it's similar to a psychedelic trip where it's not like, the day after you do have these profound things, but it really takes, from what I hear, is months, maybe even years of integration, of understanding, okay, here's what happened to me, here's what happened to that moment, here's how it connects to my life when I was a child, here's how it will make my actions going forward. So what was the integration process after taking this ayahuasca for you?
Yeah, so I took it in December a year ago. So I don't know the exact, was it 2021-ish?
Yeah.
Coming home was interesting because it was cold, right? And it's kind of interesting to come home to my partner, because he was like, and I'm trying to explain it to him and trying to like, explain that I'm different, but then it'd be like, I would have those moments of still being triggered, and he'd be like, well, I thought you're different. I'm like, oh,
like me too.
Okay, like I promise I'm not gonna do this anymore. But honestly, the integration for my mom was really hard because she wasn't living in her alignment. For me, I already was kind of living in alignment before I left, so it was really easy for me to keep going. I already was on that path. I was already doing Reiki. I was already like on alignment. So it wasn't as much of a hard transition for me, but watching my mom, like, because she didn't know about child trafficking. She didn't know about this all the reason I bring that up is because that's shattering to people who don't know about that yet, right? She didn't know about all this darkness in the world, and she got super deep into like conspiracies after. So she's like, did you know about this? Did you know about this? And we lived together. So she's like, did you know that this? And I said, I know all of these things. Not that I know everything, but I'm like, I've already. So it was interesting because for me, it honestly showed me how much work I've already done. I'm always a work in progress. But it also showed me how aligned I am to hold space for people's healing, because ayahuasca was really easy for me. I could do it every day. It wasn't challenging for me. There's moments of, but I have such a deep trust and conviction to whatever created us, again, not that I'm really, but I don't know, when you hit this point in your life and your journey where you just kind of quit questioning it and you just know it. That's kind of what ayahuasca did for me. It just is. I can channel the universe's energy. It just is. People keep showing up. I get new clients every day. People are calling me, asking me to do this, helping them to do that. Like, it just is. It honestly just brought this inner awareness of like, yeah, you're in alignment. Good job. Good job. That's kind of what I felt like. Yay, you're doing it.
Yeah. Like you already knew, but like the universe said, you're doing good. Keep going. To loop it back to the beginning of what we were talking about with Christianity. I mean, in the Bible, he talks. Jesus is not acting as Jesus. It's God acting through Jesus.
Yes.
And that's this thing of life can become this series of coincidences and knowings without your mind and understandings without words. Life is painted, time itself is actually unwound in these instances of allowing God or whatever this thing is to move through you and be through you and you become one with God, So, oh my gosh, I wish we could talk forever, but I need to let you go, Jay. So thank you
One more
so
thing
much.
on that.
Okay, please.
Because I have one thing to talk about. Because about the Bible, I also had a lot of resistance with that. But we are God, creator, loved so much that she wanted to experience it in flesh. That's what I feel about us being here on 3D. Heaven or whatever realm, we couldn't touch. There's no sex, there's no food, there was no, it just was, right? And there was no questions, there was no mystery. It wasn't fun. And that's what I come down like, it's fun to be a human. Like, I don't know everything. How fun is that? I don't actually know. I get to eat, I get a hug, I get to feel. People on the other side don't have that. They don't have touch. Like, they don't feel that. So that's another reason to have fun, like to be thankful that we do get to experience that, and that whatever it is loves us so much that we get to actually experience that love. And when you let that love in, it's amazing.
I mean, I think about like the first time that you fell in love. I mean, maybe you didn't even feel it so much at that moment, but like I can sit and just really like envision the first time that I truly felt love, or like the first time that someone like told me that they loved me and I truly understood it and felt it.
Yeah.
And like, I can't even imagine, this is beyond words. It's this gift that like, wow, I'm able to experience that. And like, there's these celestial beings who like know so much, but like, if they didn't go through the third density, like they wouldn't be able to experience that. Wow. What a gift indeed. Like to feel
be able love in flesh form.
Yeah.
Love is the only thing
itself.
that's real. Yeah, love is the only thing that's real.
The answer is love.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was so fun.
Jay, yeah, okay, we totally have to do this again. If you would, we'll talk outside of this, but I would love to talk about death with you. I think we could have a beautiful conversation around death. It's something that it's been a lot of my path, and again, I just thank you. You've always been a space for me to be open. You've always been, you came to my house in Castle Rock, and you were like you walked in and you're like, wow, thank you for allowing me into your mind. You said something along those lines, and it made me feel very like, okay, wow, I don't feel so like crazy and nutty. I feel seen for who I am. And so I greatly appreciate everything that you've done within our friendship and everything that you're doing for the planet in service of everyone. And sometimes I get caught up in a little bit of daydreams about the future of seeing like how powerful you are in the future the future is bright and beautiful, and I think there's a lot of people who will be hearing. There's a lot of ears that will be thankful for your voice in the future, and I know it to be true. So.
You too. Thank you so much for holding space, always holding space in the ways we've known how, and just like not getting those numbers and everything. And I've always told you, like, this is, you just gotta trust and believe, and when you're doing it of service, it will touch those. Most great artists don't even get recognized till they're dead anyway. Speaking of death, and leaving your mark, that's here to help and rippling out for generations. So thank you so much for having me and all that you do, and just showing up and being of service. It takes a special individual to actually be of service, and to choose that, right? So thank you.
It's cool that you ended on that, because I've had recent synchronicities with choosing, and basically like giving myself up to service of God, for whatever that means, so I've had those experiences lately. So Jay, we'll be in touch. I love you so much. Listeners,
so much
love
love
yourself. Please reach out, check out Jay. What is your Instagram handle again?
Cosmic Mermaid.
Please follow Jay on Instagram. She's a wonderful follow. She posts great things every day, and she also has a link tree with a bunch more things. If you're in town, you need some Reiki healing. I think you don't underestimate Reiki healing, and just the way that you feel when you're with Jay, and the way you feel afterwards. So it's just wonderful. Love yourself. I love you guys. See you later, Jay. Have a good rest of your day, my friend.
Bye, you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
At what age do we learn how to have better conversations? At what age do we learn to have better conversations with ourselves?
Knowledge is power.
Reality is